Dakota, this is the first appearance of Madam Web in Marvel Comics. I ordered this just to bring it today.
Wow.
Have you had a chance to actually physically hold this and flip the pages?
I actually have, but this one looks like a first edition, is it?
Yeah, it is a low grade. It was the best I was able to find on like a reasonable price.
Whoa.
And that sleeve is in there on the actual first page where your character shows up.
Yeah.
So when you hear about the role, do you turn to the comic? Do you what is it like to see it? It's this many years ago this was published, and now you get to bring it to life. Nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah. Very cool. I like that she's so sassy and spicy in all the comics.
Yeah. She's got some sauce going on.
She's
for sure.
very saucy.
I love to hear about it because you're looking at that right now. That's a full costume that she is wearing, and that means that, in this movie, you got to wear the first ever version of that in live action. And I love that this movie did practical suits. That's so rare in these movies now. When you first saw yourself in that costume, how did that feel? Did it help you get into character more?
It was really cool. It was just such a cool feeling to wear a suit that was made for her and for, specific to my body, and it was really exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. And one thing about your character, this isn't the typical superhero action sequences where it's just fighting and punching each other and all that stuff. Your character has to be very creative throughout the movie with how she fights people off. I mean, using electricity, using vehicles, everything like that. What was your favorite thing to kind of explore in that regard when you were having to bring action to a superhero movie in a completely different way than we've seen before?
Well, that was actually really fun for me because, I feel like typically you see a superhero that's their physicality is the thing that makes them recognizable, but with Madam Web, it's her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, her fighting is scrappy. She's a human. She's just a human fighting. And because she grew up in the foster system, I wanted her to be really kind of primal and scrappy and tough and grab bottles and knives and whatever is around to defend herself with. So it felt really wild and natural to her.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, obviously, with these Marvel characters, I'm sure when they start talking to you about the role, they lay out everywhere it might go, how long it could go on for. When you first came on, and the movie kind of does leave it open to say, hey, we could do some stuff with this in the future. Do you start to fantasize a bit oh, there's other characters we could cross over with? There's this we could do. And where does that go, for you as the actor?
It would be so fun to do more. I don't know what will happen, but
of course,
it would be really exciting.
So in the multiverse of spider characters, are there any characters that you particularly think would be fun to ever share a set with, or actors who have played those characters as a result?
I admire so many of the actors that play superheroes, but obviously it would be cool to work with Spider-Man, and but it's it's not the Spider-Verse, so it's her world, and I don't know what kind of crossover there will be.
This is the first appearance of Madam Web.
Yes.
Have you seen this?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it like to flip the pages on the comic for the first time? Do you remember? Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
What was it like to meet the character in comics? Let's talk about that.
Oh my god, so cool. I was how is this real life? I honestly didn't know about Madam Web until this movie.
But I didn't either.
But I think what's so cool is that you don't even have to know who Madam Web is, if you weren't aware of the comics before seeing the movie, because this is the origin of her.
Yeah.
So that's why you have the amazing Dakoto Johnson.
Yeah, it is cool to see the movie put a spotlight on the comic this way. In the comics, your three characters don't really cross over often, which means in this one you kind of had free reign to build a whole new dynamic from scratch. What was it like to kind of have that freedom without the pressure of a canon in a different medium?
It was so fun because we just got to build our own dynamic between us, and I think also our actual friendship really informed what you saw on screen, because it was honestly really funny to see me and Bella's characters have beef and there'd be tension there.
So much tension.
But that only was able to exist because we had such a good friendship and a foundation of kindness between each other, so that we could build off of that in a fun way,
Also, how it goes in the comics is Julia becomes Madam Web, and through that gives me her costume of Spider-Girl, the title, because originally I'm just Araña, and I got my own kind of exoskeleton type spider costume. So it was really cool to see how possibly they had to differentiate the costumes because we do technically at some point in the comics have the same costume and suit. So
And it's cool to see that friendship before all of that happens too at such a
Yes.
young age.
and our suits, if you notice, are inversed.
Yeah, so they're inverse of each other.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love how you know so much about it. You know how much the fans are gonna love that you know so much about the cat. Yeah, well, no, but not everybody
Not
does.
knowing.
Not everybody who plays these roles does.
Well, I don't know them.
So, but it's cool.
These two do their research.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you talked about the suits. The first time we all saw that photo, I think it was like the three of you in the broken window on the ledge there. Like everybody was like, "Oh, these look so cool." It's very rare we even get practical suits anymore in these movies. So I appreciate that they did that. So the first time you were all together in the suits, did you do anything special? Like, did you have a moment on set or like in the costume area to like be together as your spider people for the first time?
We took a lot of photos.
Yeah. We're like, selfie!
I gasped when I saw these two in their costumes. It just looked so right. They're so beautiful.
Yeah. No, Bella.
Yeah, no,
It was a really sweet moment, genuinely. We were like, oh my god, just so proud of each other to even get to this place in like our lives and our work and to be doing something so cool and exciting. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're going on to play another comic book character, which we just saw your Instagram story. Everybody's talking about it. You're talking about getting yoked.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
Taking creatine.
Same, I hear you. That's awesome. I'd love to hear about. Did Madam Web help you get ready for Hawkgirl in the DC universe in any way? Was the prep similar, different?
Oh, absolutely. And I was like, is it possible to do both? I know people have, but I was like, why would I be able to do it? And so I just didn't tell them about Madam Web. They're like, oh, have you had previous stunt training? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, where? And I was like, I don't remember. I don't remember where I did it. It's so crazy. I was in a harness too. I don't know where. It's crazy.
Another life.
Yeah.
Well, you'll go crush it there. You all crushed it here. So this is the Marvel multiverse now. You're all a part of it. You are your respective spider people. If the multiverse brings you across the universe with other spider characters, who would you most want to share a set with, share a screen with?
I most want to share a screen with the live-action Miles Morales, personally. I feel like Maddie Franklin and Miles could be friends. I could see that.
I think we all want Miles Morales.
Yeah.
On the live action version.
That'd be awesome. Cool. Tahir, welcome to the Marvel universe, man. How's it feel?
Thank you. Feels good.
I bet. Okay. Speaking of how does it feel, you get to wear a practical suit as Ezekiel Sims, as a spider villain. Not everybody puts on a suit these days. Most of the time it's computerized. So what did it feel like to slip into that costume and see yourself? Did it give you like a whole new energy to play this character?
Of course, it felt real, and you almost end up believing that you have real powers.
I bet.
You're like, okay, I can try from my, it was great, felt comfortable, and yeah, it's such a beautiful suit. It's right, cool. Black, red. I liked it a lot, yeah.
How do you beat that, man? I remember when there was like first photos that got online. I don't know if they were supposed to get online, but somebody sniped you guys on the set, and that was the first time we saw you. It was in the on the bridge scene. It was all,
Sure.
And so when that happened, and I imagine you're just like back then, you're not even allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to say anything. What was kind of that day like for you, where people got their first glimpse at you in a suit as Ezekiel Sims, and you can't even say anything?
It was odd.
Yeah, I bet.
Say, yeah. Because all of my friends and family were, can we see it? No, did you try it on? I'm like, yeah, of course. Can we see it? No, I can't.
Yeah.
So what is the movie about? I can't talk about it. So it's really frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that picture coming out, you're like, man, I wish I could, at least say it and show it to my friends. And they just took out this nice moment that I was trying to, save for a specific moment, especially for my kids, but anyway.
But it's still cool because then the whole internet's having a conversation and it's about you and your character. It's still kind of fun. I hope it was cool for you. Your character, we get kind of peeks into his backstory, his history, his motivations. I'd love to hear for you when you sat down and you first looked at the script and you got the full briefing on Ezekiel Sims. How much of his backstory did you get to fill out, and did you film any of it that didn't end up making it into the film that we might see on home release or later down the line?
We shot different things, and I don't think we'll have more to show than what it's in the movie. But what I did is that I went back to the comic books, and I tried to put in as much of him as from the comic books as I could to create a connection. But what I told myself, what is his backstory in this movie specifically. For me, it's just a young boy who was, abandoned, mistreated, and had to experience every bad things that the world has to offer, and eventually turned him into a selfish man who wants power for himself.
Yeah. The movie is set in 2004, right? 2003. And that was a very interesting time because it also kind of plays on tropes of that time, the soundtrack, some of the visuals. It's awesome. That was a time when these sort of movies were bursting onto the scene. Do you remember the kind of was there a moment where you watched a movie back then, one of the first comic book movies, and this boom that kind of got you into it? Was there anything you were particularly interested in back in that time?
You mean in the
like those
Marvel
early
world?
2000s? Yeah, Marvel, DC, were there any superheroes that...
I think the first one that was a big hit was Spider-Man.
Yeah,
right?
Same time, Spider-Man 2000.
Exactly. And I remember it. Truly, I watched it in a movie theater, and it was great. It was fun, and we had enough emotions while watching it, and actions, and it was kind of grounded, even more, let's say, serious than what we had for the past 10 years. And in some ways, this movie makes me think about the first movies that were made in Hollywood about superheroes. Right?
Yeah. Lorenzo, thanks for taking the time to talk today.
Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Let's talk about Madam Web. This is a group of characters that, in comics, they rarely get the chance to come together the way they do in this movie. I'd love to hear about how you landed on the team of Cassie, Julia, Anya, and Maddie for the Madam Web movie.
Well, obviously it started with Madam Web. And then, the challenge of the character that we saw Madam Web was something who was scarred, who was emotionally scarred, and who really detaches as much as possible from people. So the idea then of having three young charges really appealed to us. And so that, first I think we started thinking about it as one, and then we're like, well, what about? And so it was really fun to put the four of them together and make the three of them sort of be a unit that was both irritating for her and ultimately very satisfying for her.
Yeah, and I love that you chose practical suits for the characters too. That's awesome. There's a sequence actually in the diner where Ezekiel is walking on the ceiling. What did you guys build a set to flip it, or how did you guys pull that off? Because a lot of it looked very, very real and good in camera.
Yeah, we did. It was a live stunt in camera.
And that's just a person upside down.
Yeah, so it was a trick, but it was nonetheless in camera.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really cool. Yeah. So when it comes to doing a movie that uses Spider-Man characters, the first thing audiences go to is is there a Spider-Man? How does this tie to everything else? Did you guys, how do you guys keep that in mind? And did you ever consider having, whether it's a Spider-Man, a Peter Parker, a Miles Morales, or any of them involved in this story in any way?
Well, we made a decision early on that the advantage in this story was not to attach it to all these other stories. We tipped the hat.
Yeah.
But really, we wanted to concentrate on a character journey, and I think some of the superhero fatigue that people talk about is because those movies are often not about the central character. And so we felt it was stronger choice for us to say, this is Madam Web's story. She comes out of the Spider-Man comic books, but it's not part of this other giant thing. It's its own standalone, which gave you the freedom really to tell the character story.
And to that point, it's a rare Marvel film that doesn't have a credit scene. So I love to hear about the choice to not, because it does leave it open-ended. The movie does leave it open-ended for more story to be told.
Yes.
But there's nothing at the very end, which has become kind of a tradition.
A staple, yes.
Yeah,
well, it wasn't a conscious decision to say, we're not going to do that because everybody else does it. We really liked having the ambiguity of it and the sort of promise of it that stood hand to hand, that other piece would then solidify it in a specific direction.
Cool. And you have your hands in a lot of really cool franchises and projects. One of the last ones we talked about was Transformers, which seems to be due for a G.I. Joe crossover. I would love to hear if we can get any update on that, when and what we can expect when that comes to life.
The honest truth is I don't know. I know we are going to deliver on the promise we made.
Awesome. Another thing that people are talking about big time is with the DC Universe rebooting. We've Constantine 2 possibly. Anything you could say about that and whether that's going to come to life?
I hope it does, because it's a great character. It was great in comic books, and it was great making that first movie. It's such an alternative kind of character. It's what really attracted me to Madam Web, was the singularity of the character. You know,
Yeah.
like the idea that she is going to become blind and that she is going to be this other thing was really attractive.
Yeah, I love that. And well, I just want to leave this open-ended because, like I said, you are involved in so many different properties. If you could take any of the projects you've worked on, revisit them, whether it's doing them again in a reboot or a sequel follow-up, is there anything you think is likely, you really would like to get a crack at?
I don't really think of it in those terms, but since you asked the question, the movie that popped in my head is 1408.
1408.
Yeah, because the character journey that character goes on is so severe. And he's such a broken character for the length of that movie. And really, even at the end, he's still broken. So, like, I think the possibility of where he could go would be very interesting. And does he even stay on the hunt of, if you would, haunted houses?
Oh, that would be awesome. Well,
Yeah.
for now, it's all about Madam Web. I can't for everybody
Thank
to
you.
get a chance to see it. Maybe we'll be talking about this one again sometime.
I hope so.
Thanks,
I hope
Lorenzo.
so.
Always